In the frozen desolation known as the White Wasteland, fearsome creatures dominate the land. A massive white serpent devours glaciers with ease. Reshaping the terrain nearby, a gray bear rumbles across the tundra, triggering earthquakes beneath its thunderous steps. Deep within polluted waters, a vile beast poisons the sea, corrupting life itself. These monsters are legendary, each representing a force of destruction. Yet, an emperor once claimed that the true terror of the wasteland wasn't the beasts, it was something else. A group of humans marched into this icy hell, braving the cold and its monstrous denizens. But it wasn't the monsters that brought the wasteland, it was the presence of a lone barbarian. It was something else. As glaciers collapsed and enemies marched into this icy hell, braving the barbarian fought with monstrous denizens. His battle instinct outmatched the creatures of the snow. The presence of a lone barbarian echoing louder than ancient humans marched into this icy hell, wielding a barbarian weapon, slashing through enemies with deadly instinct. Others looked on in the snow, wary of his strength, echoing louder than ancient humans. Some mocked his enemies, icy hell, wielding a barbarian weapon, none could deny his effectiveness. One moment he was fighting, the next others lay comrade for foolishly eating poison. The snow, wary of his strength, echoing louder than ancient humans. Some mocked his enemies, icy hell, wielding the wasteland's greatest threat. Among the group, Greta and the others stood proud, bragging about completing a noble challenge. However, the woman's excitement masked a deeper unease. When pressed on her supposed achievement, something in Greta's broke. His body trembled uncontrollably, and without warning, she collapsed. Unconscious in the snow, the woman rushed to his side, panicked and shouting Greta's name. The woman shook him, desperate to wake him, but he remained unresponsive. One companion, likely closest to him, knelt by his side, shouting with urgency. The cold winds howled around them, but Greta didn't stir. Roan of the men turned away from the group, walking off into the snowstorm, consumed by quiet frustration. As snowflakes swirled around him, his thoughts drifted. "This isn't what I wanted," he muttered. His journey, once fueled by dreams of fantasy and adventure, had taken a darker turn. He had left behind a normal life, seeking purpose and challenge. He climbed mountains, crossed deserts, and explored the deepest oceans. Still, nothing filled the emptiness. So he prayed, night after night, for something beyond the mundane. And one day, his prayer was answered. Now part of a caravan heading into the deadly White Wasteland, he faced bitter winds, reluctant allies, and a reward that might never be worth the cost. Inside the warmth of a noble estate, a debate stirred. The blue-haired noblewoman, Milena of the Akasha family, looked out the frosted window at the shivering expedition team. Her butler scoffed at the group's poor manners, but Milena defended them. They were the only ones brave enough to venture into the White Wasteland. Despite their suffering, the butler refused to bring them inside. He warned her, those who return from the wasteland speak of unspeakable dangers. Milena remembered the tales of monsters. Yes, but worse. An emperor once sought to conquer the wasteland with an army, only to return years later alone, broken and aged. He spoke of barbarians, not beasts, as the greatest threat, silent predators hidden in the snow. Milena listened quietly, aware of the countless rumors. Yet, she also noticed something odd from afar. The snow stirred unnaturally. Catching the attention of the expedition team, they halted. A silhouette moved. Tension rose. One scout announced both good and bad news. The figure was small, but it was approaching fast. The wind howled as everyone, inside and outside, froze in anticipation. Whatever it wasn't just approaching, it was hunting. From the blizzard emerged a lone figure, massive in stature but calm in presence. The caravan guards tensed, weapons ready, expecting a beast, only to pause in disbelief. The figure was human, or so it seemed. As the wind cleared, his massive frame and battle-worn gear became visible. One muttered the word, "Barbarian." Ashen hair and confident steps revealed his identity: Kettle, the Ashen Barbarian. He greeted them with a disarming smile, expressing surprise at encountering others in such a remote and deadly place. When asked if he was a merchant, he denied it with a chuckle. Then he pointed. Someone was hiding in the carriage. The guards flinched. Realizing he had seen through their formation, inside the carriage, Milena silently observed the exchange. The guards, unsure of his intent, braced for conflict. But Kettle made a surprising request. He wished to be hired as a guide. Shocked, they hesitated. He clarified. He wasn't a threat if he had meant harm. They'd already be dead. Though the wasteland feared barbarians as monsters, Kettle stood apart. Whether a chance ally or hidden danger, one truth became clear. The White Wasteland had just grown more unpredictable. Tension thickened in the frozen air as the guards remained speechless. Even their captain hesitated before responding. A distant sound echoed through the wasteland, a faint, rhythmic knock. Milena and the others heard it, and unease spread across the camp. Confused and on edge, one of the guards explained that the barbarian Kettle wished to be hired as a mercenary. Malena considered it carefully. She knew full well what facing him would cost, possibly everything. She made her decision, tell him we accept. Her voice was calm but decisive. The agreement was relayed and Kettle accepted with a smile. "That's great news," he said smoothly, stepping forward, not toward the group but toward the carriage. The captain tensed. Kettle brushed him off casually, stating he wanted to speak directly with whoever was in charge. Despite the captain's warning glare, Kettle remained unshaken. "If I were hostile, you'd be dead already," he reminded. The guards debated among themselves. Even with Malena's approval, some still feared letting him approach. One voice spoke up, warning that trying to stop Kettle would be useless. A dark aura began to radiate around him again. His strength was no myth. Malena steps forward, silencing her startled butler. A knock echoes. Her eyes widen. The barbarian waits outside. Calmly, he asks for entry. After a moment's hesitation, she agrees outside. Kettle's eyes glow with quiet intensity as he prepares to meet the noblewoman face to face. Kettle, the towering barbarian, entered the hall with quiet authority. His sudden presence startled the butler, who instinctively recoiled in fear. But Kettle, calm and composed, made it clear he meant no harm. Despite his peaceful words, the butler attacked in panic, only to be effortlessly restrained. From across the room, Malena watched in disbelief, recognizing Kettle as the legendary barbarian she'd only heard of in tales. Soon after, formal introductions followed. Malena, still cautious, greeted him politely. Kettle responded in kind, impressed by the warmth of the hall and unnatural comfort in the heart of the snowy wilderness. Malena explained that magic maintained the indoor climate, and Kettle acknowledged its usefulness, but he quickly reminded them of the dangers that still lurked outside, offering his strength and protection. However, Kettle had one condition in return for his protection. He requested something valuable: knowledge. He sought to understand the world beyond the snowfields. Malena hesitated but recognized she had little choice. She agreed to his terms. At last, the air softened. Malena introduced herself formally as Malena of House Akasha. Kettle, in turn, gave his name. The agreement was sealed, an alliance born between the barbarian outsider and the noblewoman of the north. Kettle was once an ordinary man from a modern world longing for adventure. One day, he awoke in a snowfield, reborn in the body of a barbarian. There was no time to question the how or why. He had to survive, with nothing but primal instinct. He hunted, fought beasts, and endured the merciless cold years passed without measure. The only constant was his struggle to live. Bound to the snowfield by a mysterious force, he remained trapped despite his strength. It was only when he noticed occasional outsiders passing through, merchants, adventurers, soldiers, that he realized something crucial. Beyond the snowfield lay the fantasy world he had always dreamed of. That knowledge fueled his resolve. No longer surviving for survival's sake, Kettle began to act with purpose. He hunted larger monsters, completed system-assigned missions, and carved a path forward through sheer determination. He unlocked new strengths, gaining the hope of eventually breaking free. Now standing before Malena, he reflects on his journey. Despite being feared as a barbarian, his understanding of the world is sharp. When he hears the clatter of weapons from her wagons, he immediately suspects military transport. War, it seems, ravages the outside world too, reminding him that fantasy also brings conflict. As Kettle continued to learn about the outside world, Malena explained a rare and powerful force known as mystery. Only a select few could sense or wield it, and their abilities were ranked, from third-rate users barely capable of sensing mystery, to the second- and first-rate individuals who could manipulate it as mana or aura. The power scaled quickly. Above them stood the transcendents, beings who defied normal limits and shaped nature itself. Even greater were the heroes, legendary entities whose sheer existence was a force of change. Kettle listened intently, drawn by the potential these ranks represented. For so long, he had survived without direction. Now he felt the stirrings of purpose, to meet those who wielded such powers and to find where he truly belonged. He confessed his desperation to escape the snowfield, no longer out of survival, but to find meaning. Malena, surprised by his intensity, questioned his identity. When she mentioned legends about barbarians, Kettle realized that tales of his existence had somehow reached beyond the frost. Their bond deepened. Malena, burdened by her own mission, admitted her group's purpose, gathering funds for a war effort. Conflict loomed outside, and the two now shared more than curiosity. They shared a reason to fight forward. Malena revealed that her noble house, once prosperous through generations of commerce, had fallen into heavy debt due to reckless investments. Their current journey was an attempt to restore the family's dignity by repaying the debt through risky arms trade. Kettle quickly deduced that their true objective was to supply weapons to the kingdom, which was locked in war with the Empire. His insight startled Milena, who began to question whether he was truly a barbarian. Before the tension could settle, the ground shook and chaos erupted outside. A violent impact hit their carriage, throwing the guards into alarm. Kettle immediately sensed danger. Rising calmly, he looked toward the source of the disruption. His gaze hardened as he declared the situation clearly. There were uninvited guests approaching, and they were not welcome. A monstrous black slime emerged from the snowfield, its ominous glow halting the group of explorers in their tracks. Shocked by its appearance, Milena quickly recognized it from ancient records, an entity known as the Black Slime. A rare creature barely documented, often mentioned in tales about the deadly white snowfield. Only a few who ventured there had lived to report it. Milena explained the creature's elusive nature and how some survivors even noted its edibility, chewy and surprisingly palatable. Kettle, unfazed by the danger, dismissed her warning and encouraged trying one, prompting a flustered reaction from Milena. Without warning, the slime lunged forward. Panic ensued among the group. Milena cried out as the beast charged, its intent unmistakably hostile. Kettle, however, remained still. When Milena pleaded, he reminded her of the contract. They had agreed he would only act in the face of true danger. The team, he claimed, could manage the threat. Despite his calm demeanor, Kettle analyzed the situation carefully. The slime's power gave insight into the world's strength level. As the creature struck, the frontline warriors formed a shield wall to block the assault. However, their defenses buckled under pressure, and the monster's force sent one flying back, injured. The black slime struck violently, knocking down a soldier mid-air with brutal force. Screams echoed as more were hurled back by the creature's relentless advance. Amid the chaos, one fighter was flung against the snow, gasping from the impact. The creature surged forward, mouth gaping and radiating malice. The team quickly regrouped. Their leader barked out critical instructions. Black slimes could only move in straight lines. With that knowledge, they scattered, using the terrain to their advantage. Coordination improved. The soldiers maneuvered rapidly, repositioning to bait and flank the monster. One fighter launched a swift counterattack, targeting the slime's exposed side. The creature recoiled, hissing in pain, but retaliated fiercely. Undeterred, another soldier reinforced the assault, his weapon glowing green with magical energy. The slime roared louder, its eyes flashing, but the pressure didn't relent. The team continued their strikes, avoiding direct paths and focusing on coordinated movements. Their leader urged them not to stop attacking. The slime's body began to ripple under the continuous blows. Realizing blunt attacks were ineffective, he redirected their efforts, aimed for the core hidden inside. One soldier leapt forward, channeling energy into a vertical slash. His weapon pierced deep, striking a glowing red gem, the monster's core ending its rampage. Instantly, the battlefield grew silent as the black slime finally collapsed, dissolving into steam. Cheers erupted from the group as they confirmed their victory. Shouts of triumph filled the air, and even Milena, overwhelmed with relief, joined in celebration. Kettle, however, remained silent, expression unreadable. Suddenly, growling echoed from the nearby trees. A beast lunged out, another threat. One soldier reacted quickly, commanding an attack aimed at its neck. The wolf-like monster was swiftly overwhelmed and slain, but not without injuries. As calm returned, the team began to reflect. Some questioned whether the stories about the white snowfield were exaggerated. Their success, though hard-won, seemed to contradict the grim legends. Yet doubts lingered, especially about Kettle's role. Though powerful, Kettle had not fought. Some began whispering, was he truly deserving of such special treatment? Milena defended him, but one soldier stepped forward, requesting to challenge Kettle, not out of rebellion, but to test the fairness of his reputation. Milena was visibly uneasy, but didn't immediately refuse. The request carried weight. The team, still recovering from the ordeal, now faced a new tension, not from monsters, but from within Kettle. Having heard everything, simply observed in silence, waiting to see how it would unfold. Though challenged, Kettle calmly declined the duel, stating others had arrived first. Moments later, a new threat revealed itself, ominous, powerful, and unlike anything before. The air turned heavy as monstrous entities emerged, their leaders speaking with eerie malice. The intruders fell into panic as a beast charged with terrifying speed. Towering and twisted, it mocked their efforts, claiming their struggle would only serve as its entertainment. The true danger had just begun, and it demanded more than strength to survive. As the snowy battlefield trembled, a massive serpent burst forth from beneath the ice, roaring toward Milena. She braced herself, but before harm could reach her, Kettle struck with his axe, halting the beast's advance. With calm authority, Kettle stepped forward and warned the serpent to retreat, declaring that the humans were under his protection. The serpent hesitated, questioning Kettle's presence so far from his tribal lands. Kettle offered no explanation and stood firm. The serpent, angered, launched an attack. In response, Kettle's power surged violently. Declaring himself a barbarian of the Yankee tribe, he charged the beast with overwhelming force. The collision shook the ice fields, sending a shockwave outward. As the serpent reeled, Milena watched anxiously. Another warrior attempted to aid, but the force of the battle overwhelmed the scene, forcing him back. Kettle called upon dark energy, preparing to end the confrontation. Milena recognized his technique, an advanced skill requiring immense control. He ascended into the air, wrapped in surging energy, and descended with focused fury. The impact created a massive energy pulse that illuminated the field. Snow and debris scattered in every direction. Milena and her allies shielded themselves, eyes wide, as Kettle's power reshaped the battlefield. After the intense clash with the serpent, Kettle regrouped with the caravan. The group appeared tense, their gazes cautious. Kettle acknowledged their fear, understanding their hesitation toward him. As the wagons resumed their slow march through the snow, he turned to Milena, expressing curiosity about her presence on such a dangerous mission. Inside the warmth of a tent, Milena shared her background. Her composed speech and demeanor revealed she was no ordinary envoy. She disclosed that she was the first daughter of a concubine, a political pawn discarded after failing to gain influence. Milena and her mother lived under the weight of noble status with none of its privileges, treated as little more than servants in their own house. Despite the risks, she had volunteered for this mission, seeking to prove herself. Kettle listened with reserved respect, noting her intellect and ambition. Their conversation was interrupted as the caravan halted. Snow-covered hills gave way to an unexpected sight, lush green grass peeking through the frost. They had reached their destination. Later, Milena questioned Kettle about his earlier comment. He reaffirmed his words, recognizing her efforts to save her collapsing household. While her family teetered on ruin, she alone chose action over survival. Milena questioned Kettle's understanding of her ambitions. With calm certainty, he affirmed her intent to gain control of her fractured household. Though momentarily stunned, she realized he saw through her completely. Recognizing his insight and strength, she invited him to join her cause. Kettle declined politely, choosing to remain in the snowfields for now. In response, she gifted him a brooch, asking him to accept it if not her offer. Before parting, Milena entrusted him with a request. If he ever visited the outside world, he should seek her family and support her siblings. Kettle accepted the brooch, promising to remember. Years passed, the snowfields endured their silence, but change stirred. One by one, the quests Kettle undertook were fulfilled. At last, a system message declared the completion of his final task. Permission granted to leave the snowfields. With a determined step, Kettle crossed the boundary. His long-awaited journey into the true fantasy world had finally begun. After escaping the harsh snowy plains, Kettle finally stood in a vibrant forest surrounded by the warmth of nature. The smells of grass, beasts, and flowing rivers awakened his senses, fragments of life absent from his previous isolation. Relieved, he cursed the frozen land behind him and vowed never to return. Now in a fantasy world he had only dreamed of, Kettle reflected